11 o'clock, welcome in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you on this Wednesday, 18 days away from South Carolina, Old Dominion, week number 1. And Chris, I don't know if you heard our conversation with Ryan McGee in the last hour, but he has warded me off of disrespecting the Monarchs. Says
really?
we need to keep our eye on them because it could be dangerous coming in here in 18 days. So I will not be predicting 63-3. As I had previously mentioned, I will give my proper respect to Old Dominion as they deserve, I guess.
He actually sounded the alarm.
Oh, so it wasn't even, hey, take it easy.
No, he was like, you need to pay attention here. These guys are better than you think. So, reason to be.
What's the reasoning?
Well, we have to dive into that.
Okay.
So we will do our proper research on that. But
we don't know as well.
I didn't know if
he did not elaborate on that, but he said keep your eye on Old Dominion. So
that sounds like propaganda.
We'll do our just research. Now listen, he's somebody that's very well connected, so he knows things that we don't. So we'll heed his warning, but we'll try not to disrespect the Monarchs too much over the next 18 days. Should they come in here and surprise people?
What are you laughing at, Chris?
I'm just entertained by all the. Now, they would not be funny if it actually happened.
No, of course not.
But I'm entertained thinking back. I have enjoyed all the off-season like memes where people are like, this is me when it's tied in the fourth quarter. We're going to overtime against Old Dominion. Those are funny. Will
They
not
are.
be funny. Not a great experience if it happened.
Dude, what is the atmosphere going to be like if we're looking around at halftime and it's 10-7 South Carolina?
It's 10-7. South Carolina, it's already 95 degrees because this game's kicking off at 4 o'clock. People are going to be very angry. Very, very angry.
Will they be angry or will they just be looking around like...
Or just apathetic.
Just...
Like,
you got to be kidding me. But,
well,
I mean, I've seen a lot of season openers, even some really good South Carolina teams. Season openers, coaches hate them. Coaches hate a season opener because you don't – it's like sending your kid to school for the first time. Like, you're just like, all right, here's your book bag. Good luck. I hope we've taught you everything you need to know about life.
Yeah.
And then you're just praying that you don't have 5 turnovers, you know, and end up leading Sports Center.
For what this team is, and again, this game was scheduled years and years ago. They had no idea what the team was going to look like or what the scenario going into the season was going to be. But for a team that has so many questions, you would rather be playing a group of 5 team, an FCS team, as opposed to opening up with Kentucky, let's say, in week number 1 or something like that. So you hope this is a game that you can kind of ease your way into, and you can get a lot of guys out there on the field to, figure out exactly what you're going to want going into Kentucky in week number 2, playing LSU in week number 3. You just, hope that your skill and your talent level on your team is that much better than Old Dominion to where it's not a tight game.
Well, here's the thing. So last season you played, a Power 5, Power 4 now, team in North Carolina, right? Didn't go your way. The past 2 seasons you had an opener that is along the lines of what you're talking about right here, Tyler. You had Georgia State, right, which was, a good team, but not, a Power 4 team. You had Georgia State the year before. You had Eastern Illinois, which, broken record alert, as I've said, that's the second worst team I've ever seen play college football. No disrespect. Coach is a really nice guy.
Who was the first?
Charleston Southern.
Okay.
No disrespect. In 20...
you have to. Here's what you have to say. Respectfully.
Respectfully. What was it, 2019, Wes? Charleston Southern?
Yes.
Because Charleston Southern, they came in.
That was brutal.
We were at a high school media day, like checking in on some high school guys and recruits in the indoor. And this football team walked in. And I was like, there's another high school team.
We thought it was Dutch Fork.
Like the whole team is coming in.
Oh, no.
Right. Oh, that's Charleston Southern. And then, that South Carolina team, which is not a very good team, somehow beat Georgia.
Right.
They destroy. Wow. Yeah. But anyway, back to the point. You did get 2 of the past 3 years. You got season openers that were not, an SEC opponent.
Right.
And you won those games handily. What were the scores? 46-0 and 35-14. I want to say was the Georgia State score.
I don't know if that one was handily, though, man.
It for a while it wasn't.
That was a...
Right. Well, what I mean by that is the score line, you look at it, they won by 3 touchdowns. But the whole game, you feel like you're just like hanging on for dear life. And you weren't even up early in that game. You really won that game on the strength of defense, some big plays here and there, 2 or 3 blocked punts in that game. That's really what won it for you. What you walked away from all those games going, offensively, like it was a slog. So really, when you combine the past 3 seasons, the common thread has been you haven't been able to get anything going quickly on offense. And Shane Beamer's talked about that a lot. I mean, really, he's talked about it his entire tenure. Hey, we got to start faster in these games. He's talked about it again this offseason. Let's start faster in games, but I think he's taking it more specific to game 1. Let's see if we can come out of the gate fast. I just think that's what people want to see. Ultimately, you want to win the football game, but I think in an opener like this, we're getting ahead of ourselves, obviously, but I think people want some style, not style points, but like feeling like, hey, we are building some momentum. We've taken a step in the offseason to where we look a little bit more well-oiled going into the meat of your schedule.
And it's not just the opener itself. And Beamer's talked about this, the couple times we've heard from them this summer. It's the month of September. It's that first month of the season where Carolina's historically, under Beamer, not come out strong out of the gate. Now, yes, for the past 3 years, you've played Georgia in that time frame, so that doesn't help. But still, you've only won 1 conference game, that being Mississippi State last year, and that was a shootout back and forth that, if a couple things go a different way, then you lose that game. You know what I mean? So it's not been a great out-of-the-gate start for them under Beamer. So what do you do differently this year to make sure, playing Kentucky, playing LSU, that you can at least win one of those games to start the year?
Do y'all think it's better for South Carolina? Like, would you rather them play from like a South Carolina perspective if you're the AD or the coach? Y'all think it's better? I would say there's 3 different categories. North Carolina, like, this is, hey, this is a big-time game. Like, that, being at that game in Charlotte, like, it felt like you were at, like, a championship game or something, the way the atmosphere was.
Primetime, ABC, Nation
Game
watching.
day was there.
Game day was there. Huge deal.
Would you rather that? Would you rather kick off with, like, an ODU or Georgia State? I've kind of put that in maybe a similar category. Or would you rather face what are they called in college football, 25?
Oh, FCS Southeast.
Yeah, would you rather face FCS Southeast? I mean, poor Eastern Illinois. It was just, that one was 46-0. By the way, that Charleston Southern game that Chris was talking about was 72-10. And they could have named their score.
And again, that wasn't, like I said, a great South Carolina team that year.
I think Kevin Harris rushed for
mauled them.
400 yards on 6 carries and 3 touchdowns.
That is not that far off.
I mean, really. It was like watching the Little Giants try to tackle Herschel Walker for a few plays. They were just bouncing off. Anyway, which would you rather play?
Ooh.
Based on what we saw last year, I don't think the answer is North Carolina.
Well,
you need a lead in.
The reason you like the big game, I don't think it's that last one where it's an Eastern Illinois, Charleston Southern type of opponent. I tend to go towards that middle where it's going to be a game that challenges you in some respects, but like a should win. Some things to build on, give you an idea about your team. I think if you do pick, hey, I want a big marquee game. Georgia and Clemson are opening with each other this year.
Right.
That type of game where you look at it, and even if you feel really good about your team, you look at it and go, this may be a week 1 L.
Right.
Well, you don't really want that. But it's exciting. Like, that's the type of game you like. South Carolina, if they, it's kind of all, we have hindsight now of looking at that game. South Carolina would have won that game. We might be sitting here going, that was awesome. Let's do that every single year, Yeah,
if you win it, it's a different conversation, right?
Yeah. And it's not like, that's a game that you can look back and say, well, South Carolina should be able to win that game. It's not like they're opening with, It wasn't even like
Oh.
opening with Georgia or somebody like that, right? It was a good team.
And South Carolina's in a position, based on what the rules are in the SEC, where you have to have one Power 5 opponent out of conference. You already have that every year in Clemson, so you're not forced to have to go out there and schedule those kind of opponents every single year. It's cool when you do, and again, if you win that game to start off the season, that's great. But you're not put in the box of, okay, well, now every year you're going to have to find some other Power 5 team to play in those first couple weeks of the season. You can, if you want to, make your schedule more manageable with an Old Dominion, a Wofford, a Furman, teams like that early on in the season, or at least to start the year.
As difficult as this schedule is on paper, you do have a proper build-up to the rest of the schedule in that they're going to go out there. If they take Old Dominion lightly, which you never should on a game one, but if they do, then by midway through the first quarter, they're going to be looking around like, we better get our stuff together. And, it's not going to be one of those games where by midway through the first quarter, they're going, this team doesn't belong on the same field as us. It's going to be like, hey, we have to go execute. If we execute well, we can win this game pretty handily. If we don't, it could get tight. Then you go to what we've all circled as like the most important game of the year on paper in Kentucky, which is going to be a tough game. We know that, but it's not the same as going to Texas or Texas A&M or Alabama or anything like that week 2. So, I think this schedule does kind of ramp up. And if you're going to try to look for positives in what is a brutal schedule, it is that it does ease you in a little bit. Even LSU, who obviously is a blue blood kind of brand, they come to you. They're breaking in a new quarterback. We know their defense was terrible last year. You kind of take a step up each week, I think, which could be valuable for South Carolina. Like, I don't think you look at this game and say, the Old Dominion game, and say, we won't get anything out of this if you're South Carolina. Like, there will be some things if you play well to build off of. Whereas I think we all watched that Eastern Illinois game, and we were just kind of like, what did you even accomplish? Like, you got to have some fun, run some trick plays, opened up the Beamer era. You kind of saw the vision, the blueprint of what they want the program to be under Beamer. Saw some Beamer ball. But in the big picture, it was kind of like, all right, this doesn't tell us anything about this team. I feel like the Old Dominion game, even if they win and win handily, maybe that will tell us something about this group.
Well, speaking of South Carolina's schedule, we talked about the AP poll a little bit earlier. Let's dive into specifically what that means for Carolina's schedule and where their opponents do end up falling based on the poll that came out yesterday. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tower Head West Metro, Chris Clark, along with you on your Tuesday here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you on your Tuesday. Reminder, Ultimate Season Ticket Giveaway is back online to 1075thegame.com. Register for your chance to win tickets to every home football game, every home baseball game, every home men and women's basketball game for the upcoming sports calendar year. We're going to crown our winner just like last year at our golf event at Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia next week. We'll take 3 finalists out there. This is all brought to you by our friends at the Men's Clinic at the Irmo Professional Center. Go online to 1075thegame.com and register for your chance to win. Wes and I dove into the AP Top 25 from a more broad sense in the last hour, talking about, where teams are ranked. Georgia, Ohio State at the top, teams that were maybe a little too overvalued in the AP Top 25. But looking at this specifically from a South Carolina perspective, 7 of their 12 opponents are in the top 20. Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri, LSU, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. We already knew this is a tough schedule just before any rankings came out. This just makes it look all that much tougher. And the fact that you're going on the road to number 5, you're going on the road to number 14, you're going on the road to number 16. Like, this just, again, makes you wonder, can South Carolina get to that at least bar of 6 wins to find their way into the postseason once again? Well,
even some of the games that you look at and you go, all right, that's more of a, maybe more of a 50-50 game, maybe one of the more quote-unquote winnable games. Like, you look at LSU. Well, LSU's still going to have a lot of talent. They were horrendous on defense last year, but really shouldn't have been that bad. Like, you kind of looked around and went, why is LSU, of all teams, this bad on defense? It's not that they don't have some players. They do. Are they as talented as maybe they have been in past? No. But there's a reason why their entire defensive staff got cleaned out in the offseason. I think they'll be able to be better there. Blake Baker, who's coming over from Missouri, is really good, as Wes has said. They will probably, I'm not saying they'll be, top 5 in the SEC defense, but they'll be better. Yes, you lose Jaden Daniels. That's a significant loss for them. But they'll still have talent, offensively. They have a capable quarterback for sure who's got some talent. So you just look through it, and you can see a bunch of teams where you go, that team will probably or possibly be better than they were last season. Kentucky, probably better. By the way, Matt Jones of Kentucky Sports Radio says that Kentucky running back Chip Trainum, who transferred from Ohio State this offseason, has broken his hand and will likely miss 1 to 2 games.
This is how you know Chris doesn't listen to our show.
Didn't tune into the Garnet Trust Hour, did you, Chris?
Very disappointing, Chris.
Yeah. Well, they say that people sometimes, they're in and out of the car.
Right.
They're doing different things.
Don't tell our advertisers that.
No.
They listen to us for the full hour.
That's right.
Except for Chris.
I can always go back and listen to us on the podcast.
There are 1 or 2 people.
That's right.
Who may have to step away from the desk for a minute while they're listening at work to us.
I say, Chris, what else do you have going on in your life where you can't listen to us the whole time?
Yeah, exactly.
But you see who one of their backups is still. My guy, Sharknado.
Sharknado to the rescue.
Yes, could be.
Give us the give me the last name. The double.
You said it right the last hour.
Demi Karnbay. What is the
Sumo?
Demi Sumo Karnbay.
There you go. You got it. I think that's it. Sure. You passed the test. Yeah, but I mean, we'll see. But, it's those types of things. And for South Carolina, like, should I go ahead and break it out, Wes? Margin for error?
Oh, boy.
Oh, here we go.
Too early.
I'll try not to. But there's going to be some games where it comes down to just some plays, or are you healthy in the game? We've seen a bunch of South Carolina games in the past where you go, well, it was hard for them to be as competitive in that game because this guy's out, this guy's out, this guy's out. So can you be healthy throughout the season? I mean, just so many things that weigh into this schedule and how successful the Gamecocks can ultimately be.
So, guys, we're talking about the AP poll, obviously. As we were on air, ESPN has also released their final preseason SP Plus top 25, which is the computer's predictive measure of this season based on a bunch of stats. And interestingly enough, it's somewhat similar to what the humans here, before we all get taken over by AI, believe. And so, guys, right off the bat, Georgia 1, same as the AP. Ohio State 2, Oregon 3. A little bit of a shift once you get to 4 and 5. Alabama 4, Texas 5. Then they're higher on Penn State than anybody at 6. Michigan 7. Ole Miss 8. You wonder, though, are they factoring in all the transfer portal additions with that? Notre Dame 9. LSU 10. So according to this, SP Plus, a top 10 LSU team will come to Williams-Brice Stadium for Week 3 in what will be the second SEC matchup of the season for South Carolina.
So I think because back in May when this first came out, Ole Miss was significantly lower than a lot of people thought. I don't think that ranking took the transfer portal into account. And reading,
so maybe this one does.
Skimming over what Bill Connolly has here, I do believe this one does account for that, which is why Ole Miss comes in at number 8 for being significantly lower than that again earlier on this year. So again, that could maybe give you a little bit more of a realistic view of what a team like that should be.
So Ryan McGee earlier said, "Hey guys, nobody's talking about this Georgia schedule," and he said Georgia may be the top team in the country, but expecting Georgia to just roll through and go undefeated is probably a very tall task when you look at who they face, where they face them. I think Alabama's on there, Texas is on there, Auburn's on there, and not that Auburn's in the same category as those other two, but still, now we have a bigger playoff field as well. So I feel like this season, the more I look at this AP poll, could feel different than maybe about any year we've ever had in college football. And that goes beyond all the, conference realignment and all that other stuff that factors in.
Yeah, you just went through it. But just to reiterate, I'm looking through it now. Texas in Austin, Ole Miss on the road. Even like Auburn, like Hugh Freeze. Say what you want. He's been a giant killer. He just said yesterday I should have 4 wins against Saban. And he's taken him down before.
Sure.
And he's still early in his tenure there, but they're recruiting very well. See even some of the things they did / almost did last year. It kind of makes you wonder: is it going to be a game like that could ultimately trip up a team like Georgia? So it will be tougher this year. We all made fun of their 2023 schedule. This one, I think you have to give it its proper due because it is more difficult. And as good as they are, there are a bunch of other really good teams they're playing as well.
We talked about Penn State earlier, Chris. Mm-hmm. Are you sold on our guy? It's someone I was actually very sold on out of high school. Thought he had phenomenal tape. Before I think he ended up being a 5-star. Drew Allar was an early South Carolina offer. We thought they were going to very much be in it for him. Dynamic high school tape has been far less than dynamic in college to this point. I think Penn State is one of those teams, they go as far as he can progress to take them. Like if he can finally live up to some of that recruiting hype, recruiting potential, maybe they are the number 6 team in the country. If he doesn't, then I think they're once again a team that's going to play a great defense, that's going to hang around in games against the better teams in the Big Ten, a Big Ten that now has even more better teams. And I haven't detailed Penn State's schedule and who all they have, but to me, that's a team that either could pretty much prove, hey, we're a top 5, top 6 type team, or they fall all the way towards the bottom of this 25 if they continue to get less than stellar quarterback play.
One thing I think with Penn State, maybe, and it is kind of funny to make fun of them not winning the big one. I do like their OC a lot. They brought in this offseason, Andy Kotelnicki. I messed that up, I'm sure, from Kansas. He's really good. He's a sharp guy. So for Allar's development, that might be something you look at it, okay, is that the missing piece? Is that something that'll help them take the next step? Drew's been pretty good. Like last season, he was 2,600 yards, 25 touchdowns, 2 picks. But as you said, Wes, can he give them a little bit more? Can he be a little bit more dynamic? I think he has the talent to do it, but they're going to have to run through. I mean, you look at their schedule. They got to play Southern Cal. They got to play Ohio State. They don't play a Michigan this year. So it's doable for them, but they're going to have to, at some point, if they want to get where they want to go, they're going to have to win one of those big games. And sometimes that's eluded them in the past.
Absolutely. We'll dive back into what Coach Beamer had to say coming away from Saturday's scrimmage coming up, as we didn't get to get everything yesterday. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday on the game.
All right, guys, we've been telling you about our friends over at Goal Line Framing for quite a while now. If you have not hit them up yet, why not change that? Call them today, 803-739-1337. They want to handle any and all of your custom framing needs, from diplomas to original artwork, canvases, jerseys, flags, or, of course, signed prints. So my friends Kendall Walsh, Joni James, they're going to take great care of you just like they do us every time we broadcast live over there at 511 12th Street, West Columbia, where in-store, if you're looking for other gift items, they've got art gallery, home decor, furniture, and other things available for you. Open Tuesday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., and then Saturday, somewhat new hours here, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. to noon. So check them out if you want more ideas of some things they've done or some things they have in store. Head on over to @GoldLineFramingSC on Instagram. If you already have something you want to get framed up, call them, set it up today, 803-739-1337.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, along with you on your Tuesday. I want to loop back around to Coach Beamer on Saturday, talking after the scrimmage, as we're, again, 18 days away from the season kicking off. I want to play something here. This is something that's been talked about a lot by several of the assistant coaches in regards to rotating, especially on the defense, particularly at edge and defensive line, and using this hockey shift type of philosophy and how they're going to bring guys in and out. Got number 5 here from yesterday, Dave. This is Coach Beamer talking about those hockey shifts at edge and D-line.
Like a hockey shift. There's not a first group, second group, third group. I mean, I saw, you talk about the top 6 guys, I saw all 6 of them in with all 3 groups. And that's what I told Sterling yesterday. Do what you need to do to get those guys some work. And we only have 6. You know, you'd love to have a little bit more. So we actually had to use some other bodies just to spell those guys. So we were out there for 100+ plays today. We needed to be smart with not just playing those 6 all 100. So we got some other bodies in there to spell those guys. But that's absolutely what it was. All those guys bring a skill set to that group, and like the way they're working and coming along right now.
And that's one thing that we know about these 2 position groups is you've got a lot of talent. You got a lot of guys that have proven themselves either here at South Carolina or at other places. So you want as many of them on the field as possible, and being able to rotate them in at that high clip, keep bodies fresh, hopefully will bode well for both these position groups.
And Chris, it sounded like one of the guys he was talking about that took some reps there, you would assume, based on what you saw Sunday, was Wendell Gregory, who comes in as a linebacker for South Carolina, but was working out with the edge room and actually was listed as an edge by some of the recruiting sites.
Yes.
So not that far-fetched. I think I would imagine, probably still see him as a linebacker. He was obviously recruited as a linebacker, but was listed as an edge by several of those groups. So I think that's kind of fascinating that they picked him as one of those guys. But that's a room I'll tell you one of those things no fan watching the game is going to care about, but will be sort of interesting to me once we get into kind of the game within the game. When we go back and look at that PFF snap count, you know, there will be something to take away from it from game 1. But really, I think game 2, a game that you expect to be close. Like, sometimes the snap counts can get skewed a little bit by, hey, you have a lead or you're not playing an opponent that's quite on par with you, so you just rotate a little bit more. I mean, the Furman game last year, remember, they started rotating guys in even before they took over the game, basically. And so it won't necessarily tell us everything. I think that Kentucky game, how liberal will they be in terms of moving guys in and out of the lineup and moving guys, like, by drive 3, are we going to see an entire second team, like 2 deep, for the defense out there? Or are we going to see them say, look, hey, this drive, let's get the backup linebackers in. This next drive, let's get the backup D-line. Like, I don't know if you want them all out there, like all the 2s at the same time. Do you stagger it out? Is it truly just, hey, we're just rotating these guys in and out and keeping them all super fresh? Like, I think we know there's going to be more rotation. I just want to, there's levels to everything. To what extent are we truly going to see that, do you think?
Well, the talk this offseason, certainly publicly, is what Beamer is saying. There's not, and he's saying there's not a first, second, third group right now. But I think some of the other things that he's said, that Sterling Lucas has said, that Clayton White said, Travian Robertson, they are certainly projecting that we're going to rotate things a little bit more and that it's going to be a little bit more even in terms of playing time. I think you could really apply that to really the entire front 7. I mean, some of the players themselves, Debo Williams, Gali Kamara, Demetrius Knight, all those guys have talked about it. Hey, we're gonna stay fresh. And it seems like everyone feels like the gap between, I mean, Old Dominion game, there will be a starting 11, okay, on defense. And maybe it changes week to week this year. I mean, maybe there's some more flexibility on that given how close some of these position battles are. You know, you got a lot of situations where there's like a third starter, quote unquote, a fourth starter. But I think in addition to what they're saying publicly, I think there's a little bit behind the scenes and just what we've heard, what we've observed that leads you to believe, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more even. Like you mentioned the PFF snap count. I'm looking at it from last year. So Jordan Strachan, of course, no longer on the roster, graduated. He was 10th on the entire team. He was the top snap taker at the edge position, 488 snaps.
That's coming off an injury, too.
Coming off an injury. Brian Thomas Jr. was next, 322. Then Tyreek Johnson with 277. You got to go all the way down to Elijah Davis with 161 snaps to get down to the fourth guy. So from number 1, Jordan Strachan, 488, to number 4, Elijah Davis, 161. I just see that gap narrowing. Don't you? I mean, don't you think, like, let's say, I mean, who do we think? Let's say Kyle Kennard takes the most snaps, and then Dylan Stewart's number 2, and then, Gilbert Edmonds number 3. Like, are we going to see Kyle Kennard take 488 snaps and Gilbert Edmonds only taking, 200 snaps? I don't know. I feel like it's going to be evened up, certainly when you get down to number 4. I don't think you're going to see a 400 snap disparity over the course of the year. That's just the sense I get. Could be wrong.
Yeah, well, you hope there's maybe in some ways more snaps because you're playing in a bowl game, and you hope there's less snaps because you're getting off the field.
Yes.
I think so. We'll see, but I think the splits, like you said, the percentages will be very interesting. You also, let's be honest, man, I don't know how many opportunities there'll be with this schedule, but you hope that you can get some leads in some games where you can really sort of empty out the bench and just kind of spread it out, as opposed to feeling like you have to play your guy. It's all about trust, I think. You have to play. Coaches will put the guys they trust on the field. And if, let's take the edge room. If they have 2 guys they truly trust and they think are difference makers, then, yeah, they're gonna rotate them when they have to, but they're going to get those guys that they trust right back in there as quickly as they can. Now, if they have 4 guys they trust or 6 guys they trust, then you really will see a much more sort of liberal approach to moving guys in and out and rotating them in and out. And so, I think, are there no starters right now? I guess, but I'm sure there's a couple of guys. I tend to think that Kyle Kennard and Gilbert Edmond are going to be the first 2 guys to run out there in the
Game
opener.
1?
Yeah.
And Dylan Stewart's
Next.
quickly in there.
Yeah.
I got an interesting question the other day, and it was on the Insiders Forum. It was, do you think South Carolina runs a Rabbits package like they did with the late, great Brad Lawing?
Man, the old Rabbits package. I haven't heard that question in a while.
That was an interesting question because, and I said, well, from like a depth standpoint, I feel like they might have that this year, that ability. But then you go, well, some of their defensive tackles are actually pretty good pass rushers. TJ Sanders, Tonka, you can move him around. Interesting question, though.
Yeah. Do we see them? I mean, last year, now they were going more 3-3-5 in general, but it certainly felt like when they were in some pass rush situations down and distance-wise late in the year that it was 3-3-5 because that got like a Bam Martin Scott on the field to go rush the passer, I think. So that's a good question, though. I think when you look at the skill set and the depth of guys they have, that you certainly could have that in your bag of tricks. I think the fact that they are such a much more veteran group allows you to do some of those things without feeling like you're doing too much. Sometimes if you have a young group, you have to simplify. But with this group, I think you could probably feel like you could install some different stuff like that and still be pretty comfortable doing it.
So you got some of you wanted to weigh in on the Love Chevrolet phone lines, 803-404-6100. We'll get to you coming up next as we continue this conversation to wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday here on the Game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, West Metro, Chris Clark along with you here on the game. By the way, tomorrow we're going to be broadcasting live out at Steel Hands from 9 until noon as we inch closer to the start of college football season. Talked a lot about the edge and the D-line room in that last segment there in reference to what Shane Beamer had to say about hockey shifts. I believe Lee on the Love Chevrolet phone lines wants to weigh in on that conversation. Lee, appreciate your call. What's on your mind this morning?
Hey, good morning, guys. I really enjoy the show. I'm a big Gamecock fan, been a Gamecock fan since I was a little boy. I'm 55 now, so I've seen a lot of Gamecock football, and we hear a lot of, it's talking season. But Old Dominion uses an up-tempo offense, much like Wake Forest did. And they don't always snap the ball immediately, but they line up as quickly as possible after each play. So how this rotation that you're talking about, if they can't even, because they can only sub when the offense subs. If the offense doesn't sub, then the defense can't sub. Isn't that the rule?
That is correct, yes. If because the offense subs, you'll have the official that'll stand over the ball, allow the defense enough time to get their guys in and out. But yes, if the offense continues to run the same guys out there time and time again, then you won't be able to bring anybody new on defense unless you can do it quick enough before they snap the ball again.
So if you say, and I heard you say something that he doesn't have, he hasn't decided who the starters are yet, but you need to make sure that you have that the best guys on the field, because if you're not going to be able to rotate, and especially when you're playing that kind of up-tempo offense, and I don't think Old Dominion is the only one. A lot of the football teams, just so that defense can't rotate people in and out, they run this type of offense. So how do you think that's going to affect what the Gamecock's going to try to do this season? I'll take it off the air. Thank you, guys.
Very good question there, Lee. Appreciate your call, 803-404-6100. And he raised some good points there, because if you are against an Old Dominion team that is keeping the tempo up and not allowing you to sub, how do you go about that?
The best way to do it is to make them go 3 and out. That's the real answer, is you just execute, and you can do your subs on a sort of drive-to-drive basis as opposed to a sequence of downs within a drive. Now, I will say this. There is at least a little bit of coach speak in saying, hey, don't know who the starters are. Like, they internally, at this point, have a pretty good idea of who the starting 11 will be on each side going into game one. Now, can that shift? Is there maybe a spot or two where they're going, hey, this guy has the edge, but we're still watching somebody else come along? Of course, but for the most part, they have a fantastic idea internally of who's going to run out there first. And, Lee, there's some things you can do. For one, you're not going to see that week to week. Like, you are going to see some teams use tempo. Everybody uses tempo to an extent, or most teams do these days. It does make it a little more difficult, but there are different things you can do. Now, it's really difficult to sub when a team is down near your goal line, and it's just a logistics thing. You have so far to run in order to sub guys in and out, and the way the parameters are drawn on the field on the sideline, you're not allowed to go you have to stay in that box if you are a rostered player. So basically, you have to anticipate, and even if a team is going tempo, if a player is kind of to the side where your sideline is, you can run guys on and off very quickly. You just have to have it in your sort of in your play calling, like however you do that. You have to have it where, let's say, for example, we're subbing out 2 linebackers. They have to sort of have it within the way they communicate to be able to say, hey, sub quick and get guys on and off, or you just do what everybody else does and pretend you got hurt.
And looking at the numbers from last year, they weren't quite in the same regard as like a Jacksonville State, who truly was one of the faster offenses in all of college football when they came in here last year. They averaged about 10 plays less than them, so around 68 plays per game based on the offense a year ago. So not the most up-tempo, but one at a pretty quick pace that, again, if they are putting a good drive together, are going to limit your opportunities to try and sub on defense.
Yeah, I think and this is nothing new at this point. Like, it's just something you have to be prepared for. Like, there will be times where it can sort of put you in a spot to essentially maybe you want to sub and you can't. And I think that's what Lee's talking about. Like, sometimes that will happen. But I think, again, a game like ODU, you should be able to get enough stops anyway that you can just hopefully sub guys in and out from drive to drive. Or, a lot of times if a team has an incomplete pass or a team is generally, if you get a team in a 3rd and long, they don't run to the line of scrimmage to snap the ball on 3rd and long.
Right.
Like, they're trying to figure out, okay, what coverage are we expecting here? A lot of times they're maybe subbing new personnel in for a more passing down and distance themselves. That then allows you to sub and match up. So I think it's something, it's a factor. It's a good game within the game thing to bring up, but I don't think it's something that's going to entirely keep you from doing what you do in terms of rotating guys in and out.
And I think go back and look at Tennessee 2022 game. That's a team that had a really good offense. They're going to use tempo to really pressure your defense into getting tired, right? And Tennessee did end up scoring 38 points in that game. There's a lot of offense in that game. They were 5 of 12 on 3rd down, which isn't awful. It's not phenomenal. South Carolina was 8 of 11, by the way, converting 3rd downs in that game on offense. But if you go back and look at the snap counts for that game, like the Gamecocks played, like Jordan Birch played 69 snaps, Zach Pickens played 62, and then your next guys were playing in the 20s. They still played too many snaps defensively. The point is, even if you look back at, you can go, okay, if South Carolina had this year's front in terms of having some more depth, and you put it even in a game like that, when Tennessee's off the field, if you do get them off the field on 3rd down, you're probably still rolling the same guys out there, maybe a few drives in a row, right? Where as long as you get them off the field, that's the key. Like you said, Wes, you got to get guys off the field. Then you're able to keep your guys more fresh.
Right. Appreciate the call there, Lee. Again, 834-46100, wherever you want to weigh in on the Lev Chevrolet phone lines or the Firehouse Subs text line. That'll do it for today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show myself, Terry Ford, up next here in the game.
Show's over. One more outstanding partner to tell you about, and it's great timing because it's 11:55 here on the game. That means it's lunchtime, so if you haven't eaten yet, make sure you check out our friends over at Firehouse Subs. Shout out to our guy, Larry Chandler, owner-operator of all 14 Midlands Firehouse Subs locations. And since there's 14 of them, that means that no matter where you are in the Midlands, there's pretty much guaranteed to be a Firehouse Subs location close and convenient to you. Even more convenient, you can use the Rapid Rescue to go at firehousesubs.com or by downloading the Firehouse Subs app. To avoid the wait and order online, it'll be waiting on you when you get to the store. All of your Firehouse Subs favorites and their limited time offerings that they change out all the time. Lunch, dinner, your catering order, go to firehousesubs.com or use the app. Register for a free account. You can earn yourself some rewards toward future purchases. That's Firehouse Subs and the Rapid Rescue to go. 14 locations all around the Midlands.
All right. See you tomorrow. Anybody else y'all can scrounge up, feel free.
Yeah, I texted Wellbomb.
Tell them to bring some energy.